welcome to the Technology Evangelist Podcast. I'm Dr. John Fluke, Technology Evangelist, and we are sponsored and brought to you by the good folks at Medidenta. They have some great products. I use a lot of them, and if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here and doing this. So go to medidenta.com and check out what they've got. As always, please like, subscribe, and comment if you want to. That helps feed the algorithm and keeps us finding a new audience. So we're grateful for that. And today we're going to talk to somebody that I'm sure a lot of you know, but I'll give you a quick little backstory. So my guest is Dr. August Oliveira, and he has actually been in my office. He came into my office and taught implants about, 10, 15 years ago. So he and I go back quite a ways. But August, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's always good to see you again. And yeah, I think it was 15 years ago I came out to your office and we talked about implants. I think that was even before we were doing guided implants. I think it was just a regular implant lecture freehand.
Yeah, it was. I do remember that much of it. And I can kind of remember the time because of the people that were there when you were there. So, August, I always like to start these out with an origin story. So, mine goes back to when I was 3. So wind us back as long as you want to, but just kind of tell us, where you came from, what got you interested in all of this, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I grew up in Kirkland, Washington. Some of you may know the name Kirkland from Costco brands. So that was where the first Costco was built. My dad was an electrical engineer. So back in the day, that's almost like what a software engineer would be now. And he had some pretty cool projects. He was the lead engineer on the lunar rover, which turned out to be the first electric car. You couldn't have a gas combustion engine on the moon. And so he was kind of jazzed about electric cars, and like you and I, he liked to tinker around. So he actually came up with, I think Prius calls it the hybrid synergy drive. It's the ability of wheels to power the generator. So my dad invented that, and he sold it for a whopping $15,000 to Mitsubishi Motors. So that's why I'm here doing DO composites on 15. But he instilled sort of a fascination with computers in me early on. I spent a lot of times with him going to Radio Shack or kind of surplus stores looking for boards, and so we always had computers at the house. And when I got into dentistry, I think like everyone, my big concern was doing a occlusal composite on tooth number 30 in less than 2 hours. So I had a very low-tech practice in the beginning. And then I said, hey, that's not me. I'm a tech guy. So I, of course, started with digital x-rays, but got into CEREC, was really into it back in the early days. So this is like 2004. In my GPR, I learned how to place implants. And I know my own limitations. I suck. So guided surgery just really appealed to me early on, where I would have some rigid part that would put the implant where I wanted it to. Many implant folks know Dr. Gerald Nisnik. So you and I think we met on dentaltown.com back in the day. And Dr. Nisnik was on Dentaltown, and he saw me doing some techie stuff, and he kind of said, hey, you're a techie guy. Why don't you work for me for free? And I just bought an Israeli guided implant company. And so he bought this company, and they were actually sort of a precursor to the XNav way back in the day. And I think he spent $20 million on this company, and he couldn't get it to work. Like nothing. but it had a surgical guide software in it. So I got involved from sort of almost the CAD aspect of surgical guides. Back in the days, we milled them, and that whole thing just fascinated me. And so I did a lot of teaching in guided surgery with Dentsply Sirona, and then kind of realized that sending stuff to a lab, waiting 2 weeks, spending $375 to $600 a guide was not great. So I think if you're on Facebook, you probably know a Dr. Darren Gruder, just amazing, amazing dentist. And I asked him, hey, you have a 3D printer? Are you 3D printing stuff? And he recommended the Form Labs, the Form 2,
Mm-hmm.
and that got me into 3D printing. And then eventually got into photogrammetry, digital hybrids, exocad, and the rest is history.
That's really cool. I mean, when you think about where we've come from, I mean, I go back with CEREC. I had a CEREC 2.
Oh,
And
geez, you're
had,
more OG than I am.
had to boot it with a floppy disk. I kid
Oh,
you
yeah.
not. You would flip it on and then put the floppy disk in it, and it would load everything that you needed. But yeah, you think back to that, and then you think to now of loading a design into a printer, and in like an hour you've got whatever it is, surgical guide, model, occlusal guard, whatever it is. And that's just amazing stuff. And what I think is cool is I love the perspective of looking back. And I always like to say I was born right on time, because I started with paper in my office, and then went forward from there. And you've done basically the same thing, and you've done it on the implant side, which I think is super cool.
Yeah.
It gives you that perspective
Oh,
of
yeah.
this is the way we used to do it. Um,
I'm a firm believer that the analog methods need to be taught, and
mhm.
you've done implants with surgical guides. Sometimes for whatever reason the guide doesn't fit, or you plan the implant wrong, or there's some distortion in your STL or the CT scan, and you gotta kind of say F it and toss the guide and do it
Yeah.
freehand. So if you don't have those tools, you're really in a bad position. Imagine opening up a patient and not being able to complete it because you don't know how to do a non-guided. Same thing with impression taking and dentures and all these things. People are seeing so many cool things rapidly in digital dentistry, but if you don't appreciate sort of the analog methods, then you can just screw a lot of stuff up. So I'll even, whenever I think about designing, either it's in exocad or in CEREC, I think about waxing teeth.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my instructors kind of said, okay, look, if you have a molar, the mesial half needs to be a mirror of the distal half of the premolar. So when I'm designing my embrasure form or my marginal ridge height, then I'm always thinking that. I'm like, does that look kind of like the other tooth, or does it look like some weird Frankentooth that CEREC gave me? So yeah, just old guys rule.
Now, I'm a firm believer in that. I can remember being in school and having to wax stuff, and just thinking, I'm never going to do this.
Yeah.
How come they're teaching me this?
Yeah.
And then, so what was really cool is I was talking to Ayush, the guy who founded Accuretta. I don't know if you know him or not.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's cool that.
Yeah, and I asked him, I did the origin story. How'd you get into this? And two things he said just blew me away. Number one, he graduated with a degree in additive manufacturing,
Yeah.
which I was like, you can get a degree in that?
Yeah. Do you know Amir Mansouri, the founder and president of Sprint Ray?
Yes.
Also has a PhD in additive. I'd never heard of additive manufacturing as an option.
I didn't either. And then Ayush told me that he actually started in jewelry, making jewelry. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then, then it was like, okay, if I wouldn't have known the old way and known the lost wax technique and all that kind of stuff, knowing that would be like, okay, great. Who cares? But
Yeah,
it took us down a real rabbit hole in the conversation,
yeah.
about how that links back into what we do.
Mhm.
And yeah, until he told me that, I didn't even know that you could get a degree, let alone a PhD in additive manufacturing. And
Yeah,
that's how far the world has gone,
yeah.
you
No,
know.
no, no. I mean, things are going fast, especially with AI. I don't know if you want to talk about AI, but
I do.
AI is just, I mean, within the last few months, I mean, it's really gotten crazy. So it's hard for a 56-year-old dentist with the brain not working as hard as it used to just to keep up with all this stuff. I mean, from 3D printing and digital hardware point of view, I don't think I've really seen anything super crazy exciting, but the aspect of having your own AI agent and all these types of things,
Yep.
and AI design, especially, and whether it's ExoCAD, 3Shape, or Sirac, or SprintRay, I think is happening fast.
Well, and when I remember the first time that I saw 3D printing in dentistry, I don't remember what year it was, but I know it was, I don't know, 15, maybe before then. The ADA meeting was in Washington, D.C. I do remember where it was.
Hmm.
And I think it was Form Labs. Somebody was showing 3D printing in dentistry. And I asked them, because the results were incredible. And I said, well, how do you design this stuff? And I don't remember for sure. I think they opened like Blender or,
Hmm.
one of those
Yeah,
CAD softwares that, and now, I mean, now there's like a Blender for dental. But
yeah,
at the time, it was like for engineers to make parts.
yeah.
And
Fusion 360, I think, was one
okay,
that I tried to learn, and
yep.
it just confused the hell out of me. Same thing with Blender. I mean, Blender, if you've played with Blender, I have a love-hate relationship with Blender. I need it every now and then, but it just doesn't work with my brain. So,
Well, and the weird thing was, I mean, when I saw this, I thought, okay, this is incredibly cool, but I think that programs like that are almost like Photoshop, where it's like if you use it every day, you can make it sing. But if you're like me and you use it once every 2 weeks,
mhm.
every time it's like starting from scratch. And then this whole AI thing has just
Yeah,
blown up.
it's crazy.
So,
I'm getting DMs or texts from kind of random companies that are all kind of jumping into the AI design ballgame. And it's interesting. I think that people see the money in dentistry, and
mhm.
so companies that maybe were not dental companies are now looking at it. Interesting enough, talking about Formlabs, I always thought SprintRay was like the biggest company out there. Formlabs is like a $2 billion company. They make most of their money from engineering, and dentistry is just such a small portion of what they do. But I think a lot of companies do see the dollar signs when it comes to us wealthy dentists that they can fleece. So, but yeah, we're seeing a lot. Have you played with Relu, a
No, no,
tool
tell me about
in
this.
Europe? It's kind of cool. I don't know. I don't have much of a use for it, but it kind of rapidly segments cone beam scans and does all this kind of cool stuff. And I think they're also getting into the dental design part of it. I kind of, for about 2 years, I kind of went on a weird rabbit hole down augmented reality and virtual reality, and I tried to develop with the University of Iowa basically an XNav on your face that
Hmm.
would basically show you your drill while working on the patient. And we had to segment some stuff, so we used Relu to do that. But yeah, so many companies, so many Scammers too. I mean, if you go on, I've actually, I don't know if I've closed my LinkedIn account, but I'm afraid to go on LinkedIn to see, every 2 seconds a DM. Hey, do you have room in your practice for 100 new implant patients a month? I mean, then you look at this person, they look like they're 13.
Yeah.
Um, so I think dentists can get pretty fleeced with all the different AI services out there, especially in the marketing world as well.
Well, and I don't know, that the whole fleecing thing to me is kind of wild because I get on LinkedIn especially, I get probably 4 or 5 DMs a week where they want to discuss something with me, but it's always in obtuse terms of we think you've got this great skill set. They never mention what that skill set happens to be or how they learned
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
And yeah, and it's just like delete, delete,
yeah.
delete. Um, and the bad thing, well, there's a lot of bad things about that, but
Hmm.
one of the bad things I think is you take sometimes these companies, like you said, are massive companies in another field, and they've got the expertise, and then you've never heard of them in dental,
Hmm.
and you think, oh, it's another one of those, and in reality, what you're doing is you just missed something that could have been, a crazy game changer for you.
Yeah.
Um, I think of like uh, somebody with a lot of experience, Shining 3D. They came
Hmm.
to dentistry, and
Yeah.
they've been doing that kind of stuff in engineering, I think, for over 20 years.
Yeah, I hear their scanner is legit. Not so much about I haven't heard good or bad about their printer, but I hear their, is it the ELF? Sort of
Yeah,
a sub $12,000 um, grade scanner
yeah,
from a lot of guys and ladies that I know that use it. Yeah, it's funny. You and I are in the same position too. You know, back when I was kind of lecturing a lot more and really kind of posting a lot,
right,
um, these printer companies or scanner companies would be like, oh, here, test our product or do this and that. And I've just kind of moved away just because one, there's a learning curve I don't need to learn.
right.
And second, a lot of them suck. And then, they expect you to post about it. And, I've just got this sort of moral code that if it sucks, I'm not going to go online. And so me not posting, then they get pissy. And so now
Right.
when companies kind of reach out to me, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't have time. I mean,
I,
unless you're like a big company like Dentsply or,
right.
Implant Direct or a big company that I know the technology is going to be good, then I'm happy to test it. But
Well, and if they'll listen to you as
yeah,
well, which usually the big companies will listen as opposed to the small companies that are on a limited budget and they're like, no, this is it. This is the final one.
oh yeah,
Just tell everybody how good it is. And we're a lot alike because I've always lived my life by what my grandma used to say, which is if you can't say anything good, don't say anything at all.
yeah,
So, you know, I mean, I will tell the companies what I don't like, but I don't go on rants to the public about it because I figure that doesn't, all that does is ruin it for everybody, and I don't want to do that. But
yeah,
it, well, and plus, people like you and I think it's funny how many people I talk to that are really into different digital aspects of what we do, and we all started out tinkering.
hmm,
There's just something about that tinkerer mentality. And unfortunately, you get to a point in your career like you are, you don't have that extra, you know, half day on Saturday to just sit and try and
yeah,
figure something out. It gets a lot more difficult. Your brain slows down a little bit, at least
oh
mine
yeah,
did.
oh my,
And you just don't have, you've got more responsibilities. And, I think there's
hmm,
a reason where the old adage of geniuses always do their best work before they're 30.
yeah,
And I think it's two things. I think it's neurons, but I also think it's like before I was 30, I had a lot more free time to tinker than I do now.
oh absolutely. I've got a 3-year-old, so
Oh, yeah.
I used to code for 12 hours straight on Fridays and even in between patients. And now it's like, I kind of want to do this, but then he spills something on the floor or wants me to change the TV channel. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to do that. So, Yeah, it's definitely fascinating. I'm going down this big rabbit hole lately with. Have you heard of OpenClaw and all the hype around OpenClaw?
Yes, I have. I
Yeah,
haven't looked into it, but I've read a few news stories about it.
yeah. So apparently it runs well on a Mac Mini, and it doesn't work. It works on PCs, but apparently everything's been set up to work on the Mac ecosystem. And I've seen some great dental posts about it and kind of what it can do. So I went on the Apple Store, and Mac Minis are back ordered. So I won't get
Oh my
mine until
gosh.
April 14th through the 21st. And I ordered it last month. So I've got major FOMO on that because there's so many YouTube videos you can watch. And just like any hot technology, the scammers are kind of on there. And
Yep.
so I'm on like the OpenClaw Facebook page, and there's all sorts of kind of shady things going on. So it'll be interesting to see what OpenClaw can do for me as a dentist or just me as a person. Um, it's interesting. I leaned on guided surgery for my lack of skill in freehand placing implants, and I find that I'm leaning more on AI and just automation, just because I forget stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not like super old guy forget like who my wife is, but it's funny. I mean, I used to have like little notepads everywhere, or just writing in the back of my head was design the surgical guide on this patient. They're coming in tomorrow. And if I don't set a reminder or something, put it on a calendar, I totally forget it. So yeah, I'm kind of excited for OpenClaw in that aspect to either do things for me or at least remind me to do things.
Well, and that's really for me one of the things that I think holds a lot of promise in AI is, I mean, getting outside of the design world for a minute, but if we can just come up with some really good reliable ways of eliminating some of the mundane tasks that everybody has to do in an office, then you free people up, because I don't believe that it's going to, like replace employees in the dental office or anything, but I do think it'll give people in the dental office more time to actually interact with the patients.
Hmm.
And this is such a relationship business. I think anything that lets you sit down and talk to your patients, more.
Hmm.
And if it can help you, if you can show things on a screen, even better, because we're visual creatures. But
Hmm.
just be able to free people up to then be able to relate to the human beings that we have, as opposed to, you know, I mean, I go in for a medical appointment now, and I'll bet half the appointment is people typing.
Hmm.
Everybody comes in with, the nurse comes in and she's got a laptop, she puts some stuff in, she leaves, the doctor comes in with a laptop, she's typing away.
Yeah.
And it'd just be so much better for everybody if, you could just talk human to human.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's kind of what I'm jazzed about. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny. I went in for my physical, and my medical doctor said my cholesterol's too high, and I had to get some scan. And it's interesting, just as a dentist, having an amazing team that has a lot of personality.
mhm.
Uh, in the medical profession, I'm just kind of used to people that just don't give a
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
And this receptionist for this imaging center had, great personality. She said, "Whoa, August de Oliveira, I love that name." Like she had such a great personality, and I think we're so used to either mechanical people or mechanical systems that having that mental ability to chat with your patients to make them feel like, oh, okay, August is my friend. He's my dentist. He's asking me about my kids, and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that AI can definitely free up those typing tasks, those mundane tasks that keep us away from being emotional creatures and caring.
Well, and a little rant about medicine here for a
Oh yeah.
second from me.
Oh no.
But when in a way, I think it's a blessing that dentistry is a really small little kind of like niche market in the big healthcare umbrella,
Mhm.
because I think we were such a small piece of the pie that the business, the money aspect of this went after medicine first.
Yeah.
And we've kind of seen what happens when you just give up all autonomy and become a cog in the machine. Um, I'll give you a story. So about it was probably 10 years ago, maybe longer. I was seeing a physician who was my age, great guy. I loved him. He worked at a clinic. And I went in one day, and it was a Friday. I was having a physical done, and he said, "Hey, you always come in on Fridays." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's my day off." And he literally stops and goes, "Huh, you know what? Next time my contract comes up, I'm going to talk to the office manager and see if I can get a day off a week." And I
Yeah.
thought, he's a real doctor.
Yeah.
And I've got more autonomy than he does. The office manager tells him, what to do and when to do it. I mean, what a great profession we're in that we can actually,
Yeah.
we'll call our own shots.
Yeah, I remember way back in the day, I heard a lecture from MTS Manji, the guy behind
Yeah.
Spear and all that stuff. And he was saying patients don't know your schedule, right? So we're so afraid to take a day off or, leave work at 3 o'clock to pick up our kids from school or whatever. But you can just do it. And
Yeah.
the patient calls and says, well, I want to come in at 3 o'clock. Reception says, hey, the doctor's not available that day. We've got an appointment on Thursday. So I think also some maybe younger doctors or maybe medical doctors somehow think that, oh, patient's going to know that I always take off a half day on Wednesday and go to another dentist. And no, I mean, we can manage our schedule. And, sometimes what I'll do is if I take off at 3 o'clock one day, I'll just, work for my lunch the other day to make up the hour, or just not. It's just one of the great things about being a practice owner. And I think that it's kind of, I don't want to say the golden age of dentistry is gone, but I really feel for a lot of the new grads coming out of school, with school costing so much. A lot of them just can't buy a dental practice. They're worried about buying a house. And so they're settling for working at bigger clinics or a lifetime associate position where you don't have that flexibility.
Yeah, and I think in a way, I mean, I'm glad that people have options, don't get me wrong, especially with the debt load that students have now. But I also love, it's the thing about me with tech, is when I buy a piece of tech, I almost always buy like the high end one. And the reason is that I've discovered about myself is that as I get into it and I get good at it, then I suddenly realize that the thing I talked myself out of because it was another $2,000 or whatever it was actually something that I would use all the time. So the segue on that is I love options, and I love people to have options. I mean, patients deserve treatment options, and I figure that, doctors deserve career options. But I do love being able to call my own shots. I mean, I haven't had a boss since I opened my office, unless you count my wife. But
Yeah, no, I love it. It's interesting teaching for other companies. You do have to deal with bosses in different areas and stuff, and it's kind of funny because, you've got this I'm the king of my own castle dentist thing, and then you have to now take orders from certain people. So I've actually quit teaching jobs, not for any one thing in particular, but I just didn't like what they were saying I had to say. And it's same thing in dentistry. If I don't like a composite, I'll change composites. If I don't like a dental chair, I'll buy a different dental chair. There's good and bad. I guess there's no one saying, hey, August, you can't afford that, or you don't, you're going to waste all this money because you bought all this stuff. But it's the part of the fun in dentistry is also learning new things and realizing that just because you were taught how to do cast posts and cores with Duralay in dental school, that you have to keep doing it. So keeping up with the new stuff is cool.
No, I like that. And you know what? I want to point out how impressed I am, or whatever the word is, that you've got the integrity to, say, no, I can't say that, or no, I can't recommend this
Mm-hmm.
because I know it's not going to, give the result that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that's a huge responsibility that you've got when you're doing that. And
Yeah.
you know, I like to think when I got into this, it dawned on me one day that it was like, okay, if I'm really busy, maybe I help 40 patients a week. And if I can help 10 other doctors help 40 people a week, then I've helped 400 people that week.
Yeah.
And and that's incredibly, I don't know, like psychologically rewarding, but at the same time, the pressure comes back is if I say something that I know is wrong, then
Mm-hmm.
I've just cursed that many
Mm-hmm.
other people too,
Oh God.
So,
Yeah. It's so funny. The social media and the internet is like a time capsule of what you said.
yep.
I'll never forget, like 10 years ago, someone dug up an old post of mine where I was using like first generation OptiBond,
Hmm.
or maybe I was using Curari's SE Bond, and he was like, "Hey, I've been using this; it doesn't work. You said it." And I looked at the post, and it was like 2002. And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I don't use that stuff anymore." you know.
Yeah.
But also, in the same regard, if I have suggested something, sometimes I run into doctors at a conference, or they come to one of my courses and then like, hey, I bought what you told me and it totally sucks. Like that's a bad feeling because,
It
like you
is.
said, you cursed all of their patients too.
Yeah.
And I'm there's a lot of new dental products coming on the market, especially in the 3D printing realm.
Yes.
And it's amazing how you see kind of a lot of new docs that maybe want to get into the teaching world, like pimping these things without any sort of research on it or longevity. And I think, you and I have lived through disastrous dental materials, and we have to redo it, right?
Yep.
So whether you take insurance or not, we give a 5-year guarantee on the
Hmm.
products, right? And it's so funny. Patients are like, only 5 years. I'm like, well, if you buy a refrigerator, it's
Yeah.
like 20 years, and you're not chewing on the refrigerator. But
I like that analogy, by the way. I'm going to
yeah,
use that.
but we if we have failures with not within the time frame that we say, we're on the hook with our money and our kind of broken relationship with the patient.
Yep.
And so it's funny, just seeing so many KOLs and so many Facebook posts. And then the problem, you and I, as I've been in dentistry for almost 30 years, um, is like seeing your old work and seeing how it's held up. It's easy for me to post something the day I insert something, right? Look at this beautiful 3D printed onlay I did, right? But, the real thing is, how about in 4 years? Is
Yeah.
that going to look as awesome? Or if I had used a different dental material, would it be awesome? But now mine sucks because I used this dental material. So I'm just less gutsy with you know, giving up on science or research and just going for the hot new thing. And I know that kind of makes a lot of likes and gives you a lot of followers, but yeah, I just haven't seen anything that really gets me jazzed in the computer materials or new printers or new, resins. Well, actually, Spinray's flexible partial resin,
Hmm.
I think, has been kind of one of the awesome things to happen in my practice. But besides that, not a lot.
Have you used that a bunch? I mean, I take
Yeah,
it that you have.
yeah, it's being sold as a permanent solution.
Hmm.
It's definitely not a permanent solution. So I've had a number of them break, but where
Okay.
I see the power is just getting someone a flipper, like within an hour and a half. I've got an older patient population. They've got old posts and PFMs on their teeth, and they're, in their 80s or 70s or 80s sometimes, and their teeth are just giving out.
Right.
And so, in the past, it would be, hey, look, we'll make you an Essex retainer. It'll take us a couple of days. We'll do it the old-fashioned way,
Right.
take an impression, pour up in stone, do a suck down. But now we can, make them a flexible partial and make them an Essex retainer all through 3D printing and have it done. We don't tell. Well, sometimes we actually do have patients just wait in the waiting room for it.
Wow.
And yet, the funny thing is, you and I know how awesome digital dentistry is, but I think patients also, they get a little, I don't want to say greedy, but they just expect it.
Yeah.
Right. So as
Yep.
a patient,
Yep.
and we were swamped, and I was leaving to do a lecture in Alabama, and the patient's like, wait, I gotta wait till Monday? And it was Thursday. And I'm like, really? I mean, in the past, it would take 2 or 3 weeks to get something from a lab, and we're doing it, as fast as we can.
Well,
So,
yeah. I mean, it's totally, we get spoiled. And, the one thing I always try to remember is that a job always seems easier when you don't actually have to do that job.
yeah,
It's like, what do you mean? What do you mean I need 4 tires and I gotta wait until tomorrow morning for you to put them on? I want
yeah,
to, but if you were doing it, and you would realize, and it's a lot. I mean, what we do is a lot harder than I think a lot. The problem is we're so, and I don't mean you and I, although it probably applies to you, but you're so good at what you do that people just think it's no effort for you.
yeah.
And I think the majority of practitioners really do make it look like what we do is effortless. But in reality, the hamster's running on the wheel pretty hard.
Oh, yeah. I'll have a patient with like blown out mouth, and then, we'll extract their teeth, we'll do a hybrid, and they'll have these perfect teeth. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, I don't like the edge of this tooth. It's like you had 6 teeth today, and now you've got, 24 teeth. Are you really, complaining that this embrasure is a little more round and this is square? So yeah, it's funny.
I always think of I don't say this a lot, but I think in a lot of ways. I think of Frankenstein sometimes, where the monster comes to life and stumbles out the door off to, pillage, and the guy looks up and says, "My God, what have I done?"
Yeah,
And sometimes it's like that. You say, where you get something, you're like, "Wow, that looks good," and then the next day they're like, "If you could just round that,
yeah,
and this just
yeah,
smooth that." Although I will say that with 3D printing, one of the cool things I think about that is with the materials that we've got now, if you are having something where like you're doing, some type of a smile makeover, and you can go and design it, print it, put it in, know it's incredibly durable. It's going to look pretty much this, like the final materials, and then, have them wear it for 3 months.
yeah,
And have them, if somebody comes in and they do that, can you round this and that? Yeah, we can do that. And then when when you get to the point where you say, okay, it's been 90 days or whatever it is you want to give them, are you 100%, all in on this? And they say, yeah, well then just scan it,
yeah.
and then recreate it. As opposed to, I don't know about you, but I've had a couple of pretty big cases in my life where I ended up cutting them off and starting over.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I had a student who was working for a doctor, and she had asked the doctor, because she wasn't getting a lot of patients. She'd found a new patient, and the patient wanted 20 veneers.
Okay.
I think they charged like 1,800 veneer, and she was like, "Yeah, I asked the doctor, I do it for $600 a veneer. The patient will totally go for it." And then I'm like, well, no. I mean, the lab bill is going to be at least $250 a veneer. She's
Yeah.
like, yeah, but look at all that profit, even at 250. I'm like, no. I mean, the biggest risk in any cosmetic dentistry is cutting it off and doing it again.
Yeah.
And I can definitely count on my hands and feet in my dental career where I've had a nice patient who, came in and was wowed at the delivery appointment. And then she goes home or she goes to work and some coworker says, your teeth look big. And
Yeah.
then they come back and she's like, yeah, my teeth look big. And then you have a choice. You can be a jerk and just kind of say, well, you just paid $12,000, but you'll have to pay $12,000 again, or you can redo it, you know? And so I, you know, love that aspect of 3D printing where we can go through that prototyping phase and get all that kind of worked out. Kind of a funny story. I went through about 5 sets of temporaries with a patient
Ooh.
because I was not understanding her dental definitions. So
Right.
she came in and she said, I want these 10, there were crowns because she had existing crowns. I want these 10 crowns to be symmetric because I want it to look symmetric. And I'm like, okay, yeah, 8 looks like 9, 7 looks like
Right.
10, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and so I did it. And she's like, no, 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 I want them more square. And I'm like, okay, well, if you harken back to the LVI smile style days, I think they had one that was like masculine or something,
Yeah.
Hollywood. There was a square mesioincisal and a square distoincisal edge. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, we'll design. I was working with a designer, I wasn't designing it, and kind of go with more of a square shape.
Yeah.
No, hated it, kept designing, hated it. And then she said, and she was pointing to tooth number 4. She says, I want it symmetric. I want that tooth to look like number 8. So she wanted 10 central incisors. So her definition of symmetry was every single tooth had to be this chiclet, this rectangle. And I'm like, okay, hang on a second. So I whipped out a red Soflex coarse disc
Yeah.
and shaved all of her temporaries down. And she's like, that's it. That's a Dr. De Oliveira smile. And I'm like, God, please don't tell anyone it's me. Right? So we literally made 10 central incisor looking teeth. It is the ugliest case I've ever done. And I did that about 6 years ago. She comes in for her recalls and she's like, I love my teeth. And I'm like, good for you. I hope you never leave me for another dentist and they see that. So, but yeah, the patient communication and the whole prototyping going from a 3D printed STL to a milled STL without changes in the design, I think is super powerful.
Well, and along those lines, I have a story kind of like what you just said, only mine was I finally figured out she kept talking about like her aunt. And my aunt's got this smile and anyway, I finally figured out that her aunt, she didn't know it, but her aunt had a denture. And, all the edges, were uniform.
Yeah.
And that was the perfect smile. But so the other thing I was going to say about the design deal is, like there are several different philosophies, and they're like religion as far as getting the getting CR and CO and the vertical dimension and all that kind of stuff. And everybody claims that they work, and they do, but there are those oddball cases. I don't care which one of those systems that you believe in, but there are those weird times where it's like, this isn't it. The patient comes in and is like, no, my teeth aren't going together right, or whatever it is. And being able to work that out digitally, and then chew on this for 6 weeks and see what you think, and they come back and they're like, yep, that's it, as opposed to trying to I'm not good enough to hit it every time and capture it perfectly. And, like trying to then adjust that with finals,
Yeah.
is horrid. But working out occlusal schemes and stuff, so much easier and just so much less Pepto-Bismol on my part
Yeah.
than, trying to determine all that when you can figure it out ahead of time as
Mhm.
opposed to after. It's
For sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many I've got the best lab guy. I've used him for my entire dental career. Actually, I found out about when I was an associate at an office, and I just feel for him because sometimes we'll just go straight to final and the bite's totally off,
uh,
and he's got to either grind the case down or completely redo the case. I think that labs, a lot of times what he and I do is he'll do the design for free. I'll 3D print the temps. We'll try in the temps, make sure the patient's cool with it, make sure the bite's not off. And then once that's done, he'll go to final. And so I teach design. I do design if I need something really quick. But a lot of times, my lab will do the design, and I think it's a benefit to labs, just because they're not going to final, and the doc's like, yeah, the teeth are too big. So
and that's a great point because I think one of the misunderstandings that people have about some of this, which they just, they see it from a distance and they don't quite realize how this all works, is that this whole digital thing, there's like multiple ways to skin the digital cat.
mhm.
And you don't have to do all the design work yourself. If you want to, I got no problem with that. But for, I know people, they're like, I don't want to do it, or I don't want to learn it, or I don't feel like I could do it. Well, then, let somebody else do it, but you can still reap the digital benefits,
Oh yeah.
just depending on which angle you come at it from.
Oh yeah, I remember when I started doing CIREC. I don't know if you remember my former partner in digital enamel, Dr. Todd Ehrlich.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he and I used to call him the CIREC Mafia. And so there is a group of CIREC users that would kind of shame you if you sent anything to a lab.
Mm-hmm.
Everything had to be done in CIREC same day. And a buddy of mine was a CIREC Mafia person, and he would tell me, "Oh yeah, I'll come in on a Friday at 8 a.m. and that patient will be in the chair until 5 p.m. and I'll do 8 to 10 veneers." And he would post the case, and it looked good. It didn't look like awesome. I'm like, dude, you could just prep them,
Yep.
temporize them in like, I don't know, 2 hours, and then have your Friday.
Yeah.
It's just like, you don't have to, you don't have to use this one thing. You can go digital if you want to. You can go analog. You can design it yourself. You can send it to a designer. You can send it to a lab. It's interesting. Implant crowns. For a while, I was doing all my implant crowns in CIREC, and milling them in house, and the whole procedure would take a solid 2.5 hours
Mm-hmm.
airside. And
And that's seriously, that's you knowing what you're doing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it looked good, but it didn't look like awesome. And the parts and pieces to, the block, the tie base, it wasn't much more to send it to a lab. And so what I did for a while was I would scan, I would tell the patient to go away, then I'd make it. And now I got to be honest with you, I just scan it and send it to my lab. I don't even deal with it. The lab can, center the zirconia and do all that stuff himself. So I don't even deal with it. And it from a lab bill point of view, it's maybe $100 or $150 more than if I did in CIREC. But if there was a CIREC Mafia person around, they would say, "Oh no, you're a lesser digital dentist if you do that." So
Yeah, my thing is I just don't want anybody to miss out on the amazing benefits that they can get out of this.
mhm.
But it's like a I don't know, I kind of think about that in terms of cars. You know, it's like, oh, if you aren't driving a Porsche, you know, well, I'm like, well, what if you've got 3 kids under 5?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's always
Yeah.
these, you know, these little mitigating factors. Speaking of, because you mentioned you have a 3-year-old,
Hmm.
just, you know, be prepared, because I took my youngest to a Royals game when she was 4, and we had one of the employees of the Royals came up to us and dropped down on one knee and said, "Oh my gosh, did Grandpa bring you to
Oh
the
God, no,
game?"
I've gotten that. I have gotten that. Yeah, I was at a beach in Cabo, and this weird dude came around running up to me, and I was holding my son's hand. He's like, "God, what a beautiful moment. Do you want me to take a picture of you?" I'm like, "God, do I give my phone to this
Yeah.
weirdo?" And so I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Smile, Grandpa." And I'm like, "It's my kid." And
Oh,
he's like, "Oh, dude, sorry." So yeah, it's it's fun.
my when the when the employee ran off, my daughter looked up at me and she was like, "I didn't say anything because I didn't want to embarrass him."
Yeah.
I was like, "Him? What about me?" Uh, so real quick, I wanted to ask you, what are you printing the most these days, August?
Well, I mean, it's kind of boring, to be honest
Okay.
with you. We
Nothing
make
wrong
our
with
own
boring.
aligners.
That means
Yeah,
predictable.
yeah, we make our own aligners.
Okay.
So probably during the day, one printer is always going with aligner models. And then the second would be surgical guides. So we probably average not a ton, but maybe about 2 or 3 implants a week. And I just learned the hard way that I got to do it guided.
Yeah.
So we print a lot of the surgical guides, but we have 3 sprint rate printers, um, and we print a lot of temporaries and temporary partials. We make Essex retainers by doing a digital wax up
Mm-hmm.
and then taking the wax up teeth and printing those, and then
Yeah.
also printing the wax up model, doing a suck down and snapping those into it. So we do a number of Essex
Okay.
appliances too, and flexible partials.
You know, one of the things, I haven't tried it, but it intrigues me, is Dandy has this whole deal now of like chairside digital design.
Yeah,
And I think that would be amazing. I got to try this, because the whole idea of, you know, you do the scan, they log in, and while the patient watches, they literally like, dun, 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 you
yeah,
know, and just, I think, I would think that would really be impressive if I was a patient to sit there and watch somebody give me a new smile.
yeah,
That would be killer.
yeah. That sounds great. I mean, I think Evident has been doing that for a while
Okay.
with their sort of Uber model of digital design. But yeah, we're a lot of labs are finding that hiring a digital lab technician is hard. It's hard to have someone with the skill set of being digital, but also having a lab that has to actually mill and finish zirconia. So a lot of them are offloading to designers, or at least utilizing AI, starting the process with AI on multiple computers with multiple cases, and then the digital lab tech just has to check the contacts and check the occlusion, and then hit mill. So we're definitely seeing a lot more of that on-demand design.
Which I mean, I think it's cool. Once again, it gives people, you know, on the lab side, it frees them up and allows them to, like, you know, send this out. We've got, you know, 5 guys in different parts of the world. Somebody's always awake.
Yeah.
Was talking to, do you know Paul Feuerstein? I'm sure you probably do.
Oh yeah,
Everybody
yeah. I
knows
know
Paul.
Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was telling me, and I can't think of who it is, what lab, but that their motto was like, "We design while you sleep."
Mm,
And it was just the whole thing of, you know, we've got people all over,
that's
and
pretty
it
cool.
doesn't matter when you send the case to us, you know,
Yeah.
somebody's going to get it designed before you need it. I thought it was just kind of, I mean, it's it's a cool concept, and
Yeah.
it works. So who cares?
Yeah, I use a liner company called Exceed Ortho that's based in Belarus. And back when they were small, I would literally send a case and then wake up the next day and I would get a ClinCheck. And
Wow.
wow, you guys are so fast. And they're like, yeah, because we're sleeping while you're working, and then while you're sleeping, we're up and working. So, yeah, cool stuff. Well, shoot, I've got to
You got to run.
see my patient.
All
So,
right. Well, thank you, August. I
thank
really
you.
appreciate you spending the time with me. It's always good to connect. I wish we could do this more frequently. So thank you very much,
Thanks for having me on.
everybody. This has been the Technology Evangelist podcast. I'm Dr. John Fluke, Technology Evangelist. We're brought to you by Medidenta. Check out medidenta.com for great supplies and 3D resins and printers. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. We appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye.